So we're going to work on doing dimensioning now because as we've gained more tools to create objects, we still haven't quite established scale in the real world. So I'm going to do a basic cube-like created object, and we're going to treat each block like 1 inch. Now I want to make sure my document's in inches before I get going. So it's under document settings. You can just hover over that. It brings up the paper and pencil, and you can change that into inches. I'm going to hit make that my default. I think it already was. And I'll say OK. So this is grid paper, graph paper. We're not going to really use the grids, and I want to use dimensions, so I'm very intentional about the size of things. I'm going to make a 3x3 box first, and I'm going to break it into these steps after. So when I start out, there's 3 different ways of dimensioning that I'll go through. So the first one is as you are drawing the line or the shape. So if you see what's highlighted in blue right now, it's at 3.4 inches. I'm going to type the number 3 on my keyboard and then hit tab and I put a lock on it so it will stay that size. And I want this one to be 3 as well, and then I can hit enter and it's going to pop those dimensions up for me. If I didn't do it that way, I can dimension it after. So for example, I'm going to start to cut out these stairs. So there's a stair that goes down, over, oops, down, and then all the way over. Yeah. So the first step height I'll do, and I'll just click on the line and move it slightly off. I just want this out of the way. This is telling the dimension how to be. It's not an informative piece for what we'll get into later where we're going to try to make plans that people could follow. This is just telling the computer how big this should be. So I'm just going to move it so I can read it. And that first step is 1 inch tall. It'll shift things accordingly. So now we have a bunch of different constraints. And again, a constraint is a rule that tells the shape how to be. So 3 inches is how long that's going to be. These T's are perpendiculars. These ones here are telling it to be horizontal. These ones here are telling it to be vertical. And as we go through, we give it as many rules as we can so things don't shift or do anything weird as we try to maybe add on to it or pull something over. Let me see. Now that's one way to dimension is by clicking on it direct and moving off of it. And then you click again, it asks you how big, you type the number, it shifts. Some things are kind of hard to click on, like the distance for the first top step. I can't really click on it because it's not a single line, but I do want that to be spaced away from that a certain amount. So I can click on this, and then it'll ask me if it wants me to dimension, but I don't want it. So I'm going to click a second time on this side and move it up, and then I'll click again to bring up the blue highlighted text, type 1, it'll shift that over. So this is 1 inch, this is 1 inch. Now when I go to this third piece and try to do something with it, it's going to give me an error because it says it's over dimensioned, over constrained. Basically what that means is it has too many rules and I can't give it a new rule and still expect it to follow the rules I've given it previously. If the first step's 1 and the second step's 1 in length, this third one, if the whole thing is 3 inches, has to be 1 because 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So I don't even need to dimension that for the sake of giving it that constraint. The height though is a little funky, so I'm going to move this last step down here to 1. So now that's 1. This one will probably give me an error. Yep, because I've already dimensioned the top one, the bottom one. Okay, so they are all 1. So now I can hit finish sketch. I'm going to pop it 2 inches in width with extrude. It's kind of one of those basic shapes. Again, the highlighted blue text, you could do it over here for distance or over here. I can type in 2 and then enter. And that is the exact same object. The way it's viewed is a little bit different, but we're not going to worry about that. Now what I'm asking my students to do is change the appearance and make these into something interesting just for the sake of submitting kind of a diverse appearance of objects. Now technically hitting render in Canvas and done will be the end of the assignment. I do want to mention, and I've shown this to my students, if you hit edit, like this is wrong by scale. So I can hit scale to change the scale of the texture so that it looks more accurate to the way that it should look based on the size of the object. Now I can hit the render in Canvas and it should come up looking a bit more the way that it's supposed to. For my students, I have a worksheet. You are going to do one of the objects from each row except for the top row. So that should leave you with 5 objects. I want you to do them all in the same document, and that will be something that will carry on at another point. That's the basics in dimensioning. Dimensioning will matter on future assignments, so we really need to make sure we have the ability to make objects the size that we intend them to be. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.